coming up, we're golden, we should be live.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Sunderland Board of Selectmen being called together, called to order at 7:03. Tom Z says we are alive, which is good to know because we all want to be here.
Done the pulse check.
Dave's time to check their pulse.
I would question, Mr. Chair, if we all want to be here.
I'd say there's a Bruins game at 8 o'clock.
Margaret assured me that if we leave by 10 o'clock,
But
it'll be fine.
this is priority, so.
So we have tonight's agenda, including a recommendation from a hiring team about building commissioner. We're going to talk about some basic updates. We're going to bring around a couple of appointments with veterans' graves. We have a film permit to execute in front of us, a handful of things to sign around management audit letters, annual contracts for landfill water sampling, and we are going to adjourn to executive session only for an update on the current Union 38 labor negotiation for the board. There's no action on that taken. It's only for information, and then we will return to open session to be home for the Bruins game, as I've been so instructed. So,
Oh, no.
That said, our first order of business tonight is a recommendation for filling an open position here in town, and that is for the building commissioner. Now, we had internal posting, an external posting, a screening committee, and 2 members of the screening committee are actually here. So what do you want to tell us about a building commissioner, and who's this guy?
This would be the candidate. And we had interviews and everything, and it went quite well. And we reached our decision.
I checked references, all glowing
Yep.
references, all professional references, and very, very good feedback.
Okay, so we have a name of Joe Weidenkevitz in front of us. And Joe, before we get to you, are there any questions of members of the board? We have the recommendation in front of us. Anything you want to ask Joe, since we have him on camera?
Well, at this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that Joe and I are cousins. Again, if I held grudges, I wouldn't recommend his appointment, because when we were kids, he used to beat me up all the time. He says he wouldn't try that now, but we always thought that he was one of the smarter ones out of the clan, so just, but I will be giving the town clerk a letter that Joe and I are cousins. So we're not, I believe under the intent of the law, we're not, because I don't gain any advantage or no monetary advantage, so.
So notice of the clerk, just disclosure.
But I will
Filing the
give,
disclosure, yeah.
I will give the clerk a disclosure so that she can put it in the book. But
Okay.
I just wanted to be, we do share the same last name.
And similar animosities about who beat up who?
Oh, no, he
No.
beat me up.
Okay.
No problem. He never told his parents, though.
I see. So, Joe, we've got a recommendation in front of us. Maybe before we act, if you wouldn't mind, how long you've been in the business, how many times did you actually beat Tom up, and what can you do for us?
Well, I've been in the construction industry my whole life since I was 15 years old. Over 30 years in the building trades. I actually got hurt and I had to get out of the business, so I was fortunate enough to get a part-time position over in Deerfield back in the year 2000. And I liked the work, and I pursued my certifications. I got all my certifications by 2003. I went to, shortly afterwards, I went up to Worthington, became their part-time commissioner. Right after that, I went to Great Barrington, was a commissioner there for about a year and a half, 2 years. And the last 6 years, I've been in the city of East Hampton as their full-time commissioner.
Joe also was served part-time here in Sunderland, also.
Yes,
Right.
a number of
I
years.
was an alternate for Eric.
Yeah, when Eric,
A few
in
times.
the beginning, at some point, he was also an alternate.
Yeah.
And I think he should be well-versed. I used to follow his career out in Great Barrington. When I used to go out and work in Great Barrington, I'd pick up a newspaper, and I'd see my last name in the paper, and read a little further, and there was stories about Joe Dillon having determined if a rooster was a farm animal or a pet. So he should be well-versed to handle the problems here in Sunderland.
There you go.
Sounds like you bring a wealth of experience.
Never ending.
That's for sure. Okay, so we have a recommendation in front of us. We have license, we have Slightly different structure here in that the prior building inspector, we'll talk about that in just a second, was a benefited employee. And what we have in front of us tonight is a recommendation for what is essentially terms of employment. It's a part of as opposed to employee, this would be a stipend by the hour with a fixed set of hours. We can talk about that.
This is an annual stipend paid bi-weekly, right? The annual stipend, yeah.
Yep. And there's no changes at this point to the hours served or the tasks served. And at some point, we'll talk about your transition from Worthington to here.
I'm gonna give Worthington my notice tomorrow. Yeah, I spoke to the chairman of the board this morning, actually. I told him that I was pretty sure that this was gonna happen, and, I told him that I would be handing in my resignation. Now, one thing I would like to stipulate is, we're gonna be holding hours 2 days a week versus, office hours 2 days a week versus one.
Okay.
And I would request from the board that I be able to put that off till at least August 1st, because I don't wanna leave Worthington hanging. They've been very good to me. I've been there 9 years, so.
As I'll speak for myself, any time you're accommodating a transition in what's essentially a friendly resignation, it makes sense to be as accommodating as possible. That would be my opinion.
I would agree, yeah.
I did write that into the terms of employment for the board, that an additional 2-hour block of time each week would be effective August 1st.
Okay.
Okay?
No changes in the job description. This is just happens to be a
Same job
slightly different animal with respect to the terms of employment as opposed to a full-time benefited employee.
Right.
Okay. All right, we have a recommendation in front of us. Is there any more discussion? If not, is there a recommendation, or vote of the board?
Motion?
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded for Joe Vitankevitz to come aboard for the town of Sunderland as a building commissioner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Joe, you get to probably be our first appointment for the 2014 season.
Well, he'll be doing it again next
Exactly,
next
cover right in the list.
meeting. And I should note too that Joe has lined up a couple of area building inspectors to serve as alternates, which
Okay.
those names will be brought forward to the board in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay.
All set?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Beat him up! Get him. That's too funny. Minutes of May 20th. Beat him up.
Motion as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the minutes as presented of our May 30th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0, Margaret? Okay, we have under a very short piece for board updates. There's a question right now about Chapter 90 financing at the state level. We currently don't have significant projects out there that this would be hung up on. However, about half the value of Chapter 90 money is still in the hockey arena that is the state budget process. Along with that thread, the remaining local aid still is in the entire state budget, including local aid, is still in joint committee right now. So as we get to the middle of June, we may well have some numbers to plug into a real budget. Of course, we have Union 38 contract negotiations that are going. We're going to have an update, a building tour for buildings tours, town assets tour is this Saturday for Permanent Building Committee. And Tom, do you want to talk to the Memorial Day Parade? We haven't met publicly since.
That's true, we haven't.
Talked to the Memorial Day Parade. It was pumped up a little bit.
It was, they had house decorations and they had an expanded some youth contests. We had some different marching elements in the parade. I don't think they had enough time to do everything that they planned, but they want to look at, like doing that again next year. We had to hurry through because of the rain, and we did get down and almost all the way back without getting rained upon. I have actually heard from a couple of residents, actually speaking with a couple of residents as were walking out of the cemetery about the upgrades, and that they were very pleased also. I would think I'd like to thank everybody that participated. More so the kids from Frontier, because it was under duress with the threatening lightning and storms, so that was very much appreciated. And one of the nice things, unfortunately, our oldest resident wasn't able to march, but our oldest veteran did march, and learned a little bit about Mr. Walter Ballounis and his experiences in the Second World War as a what they call an armed gunner on merchant mariner or merchant marine vessels. It was very interesting. Merchant marine vessels, there were more merchant marine vessels lost than regular naval ships. So
Yep,
it wasn't and about how there was 26 or 28 of them that got assigned to a vessel, and they manned guns on those merchant ships on the crossing. So that was very interesting. So all in all, it was very interesting. I hope we're going to have Mr. Ballounis back again next year, and Jimmy Ballounis' Model A, which was a big hit.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a good time.
Is the board update specific?
No?
Anything else,
I
Tom?
think
That's
Margaret, the Cliff Notes of the town administrator update?
Well, it's getting close to the end of year, so that's a crazy time. So we've got a big department heads meeting coming up on Thursday to talk about the end of year transfer process and spending and things like that. So the board should expect to have a couple of appropriation transfer requests come before it in 2
that
weeks.
time of year.
And we did get, we received 4 bids total on the lawn mowing services beginning in FY14. I'm reviewing those now and calling references, and I'll have something for the board in 2 weeks on that. Solar project, wetlands delineations are being done. Applications to the Planning Board and Conservation Commission are being submitted, and the contract is being reviewed. My goal on the contract is to try to have it ready for execution on Monday, July 1st. So I'm going to try to get that reviewed, all 61 pages of it, and get it to the board for July 1st. And then finally, green communities. We did have our building energy audits done. Those are being worked on now. We also have completed lighting retrofit projects, and we're looking to try to recoup or get some reimbursement now from green communities grant funds. And that's it.
Super, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I noticed, did you notice the light down at the elementary school? They put it back at the end?
The end one, did they put it back? I
haven't seen the one.
Did you see it, David?
I was there, the last time I was there was last Friday, and I don't think, I
thought
didn't
when
think of
went
it
by
the
today,
way.
I thought it was up. Mark, can you?
I'll check, but I
Doubt-
Okay.
thought they had taken that down and moved it to the other pole.
Yeah, the area of concern, of course, is the amount of light spill at the end of the driveway, the intersection with Old Everett Road.
Right,
And again, I think it'd be fine if they just were able somehow to put it more a parallel position to the
Right, to the
ground
road.
versus now it's kind of perpendicular, so,
kinda gives you a wash of light as you're
right.
riding down there.
Exactly. You raised a good point. Okay, next up, we have Veterans Grave Officer request, an appointment in front of us.
Motion
We have
to appoint Janet Conley.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to appoint Janet Conley as Veterans Graves Officer. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0. Okay, film permit application. A couple of weeks ago, we had a film permit, and I wanna go out right out of the starting gate and thank Margaret in particular for reaching out to local communities, SCAM network, the other ways that town administrators go about getting information so we don't have to recreate the wheel. And in relatively short order, we actually had a film permit guideline and a film permit process in front of us. And sure enough, we have had a permit application, and we've actually had some concerns expressed by citizens already about what the application does, what it means. Effectively, what this does is it helps cover the town's costs for extra incurred, that makes sense, detailed duty, offsets of utilities, et cetera, as required. It also ensures that whoever it is has their own liability insurance, points of contact, kind of a brief description about what the plan is, where they're gonna go, what they actually, time of filming, etc. So that said, in front of us, the guidelines, and were adopted by the board. We have a draft in front of us, and a request from Warner Brother Pictures to do some work in the town of Sunderland. Date to be determined. We have it signed off by the police chief, the highway superintendent, the fire chief. And there's some details specific to deposit for those costs. We have a certificate of insurance in front of us, an area that they plan on doing some of this work, and a contact for the filming company. So again, I want to go out early and publicly thank Margaret for the legwork to have this done in such short order, as well as being able to reach out to peers.
Yeah.
That's just good stuff. So we have estimated costs really of police department only because of the nature of the type of filming, and it's going to be for some detail work. And it looks like we have deposit.
We're gonna have I'm asking for the board's approval to be contingent on the receipt of the funds, which I am expecting tomorrow, actually.
Okay.
The total would be, for the police details, about $3,900, plus the $25 film permit fee.
Okay. Questions or comments of the board? Tom, what do you think? Came together pretty quick. Seemed to cover all the bases.
It's one day of filming now, by the way.
Well, there's a couple, excuse me, there's a couple things. It's one day of filming. That day will be on Monday, June 10th.
Yes.
So that'd be next Monday, June 10th. It's along Route 47. The description of the activity is a stunt scene. Pickup truck passes car, tractor trailer passes car, car passes farm tractor. That's
Sounds
one
like a
heck of
typical
stunt
day in
scene.
town.
None of us have ever passed a tractor before.
Yeah,
It's a kind
I
of-
They
know.
call that a stunt scene.
Especially with some of the big potatoes. Well, it could be, I guess that's a stunt scene in Hollywood.
Well, you know, if you're in LA, you know.
Also, there's gonna be a driving scene, actors in the process, in what they call a process trailer, having a dialogue. So basically, they throw this trailer down the street.
Which is
Big
a
car
lane
on
and a
it.
half wide, and this is why they need to have 2 to 3 minute intervals, maybe up to 5 minute intervals only, where they would have to just halt traffic temporarily.
So they can do the
So
run.
it's not gonna, it's not a complete blockage of the road for an extended period of time. It happens, over the course of that Monday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I guess it appears that from what we have for information in front of us is that they have pretty much contacted most of the landowners, et cetera, along the road. And in here it says, except for one they haven't reached agreement with yet, but they anticipate reaching agreement with them. So I would say that I would wanna stay abreast of what that one concern is to make sure that they can work out their differences. So, but that's really between the people right now. So,
Right.
Good opportunity to promote Sunderland asparagus with the Hollywood set.
There you go. And I would say with respect to impact on traffic, as someone who's been driving back and forth in northern Vermont for the last month and a half, the Windsor Bridge is a real deal breaker. So, as far as stopping traffic, 'tis the season, it seems,
Yep.
whether it's road construction or something else. Okay, so we have a permit in front of us, application, is there a motion to grant and sign contingent on deposit from the film company?
Motion.
second.
Motion is made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
3-0, please. Okay, we have a UMass Transit Service Agreement, this is an annual agreement, and requires signature of the chair if there's a motion to authorize.
Motion.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
3-0. And again, this is an annual service agreement, UMass Transit. We have the benefit of many, many, many trips of public transportation through this town. 90,000+ miles.
I think when the director of the transit authority was here on her visit, she was amazed at how many trips go through Sunderland. So
Yeah. Just for the board's information, our estimated assessment next year is a little over $92,000. For
Again,
86,208 miles driven in Sunderland.
86,000 miles. Well, I would, not only, be thrilled again to sign this, but also, encourage people to think about that mass transit. I certainly, anyway, I have a son who, my wife and I have a son who love those buses, so.
Well, we have a resident in town that was a parent of someone I grew up with, and and Mr. Benjamin still
Yeah.
rides the bus to the grocery store.
Yep.
And she does it very easily, and she knows the buses, and so, I mean, if you need, you can do it.
Absolutely, no, that's a great point, so consider that. Okay.
It's a good option to have.
We have our annual landfill water sampling agreement, groundwater sampling agreement in front of us. This is from Stantec. Now, we sample water specific at the landfills as part of every landfill being closed. There's certain other projects, you'll see groundwater sampling. And this annual agreement is in place in that we have a capped landfill. And Margaret, we have had Stantec for a number of years. Is there any reason not to consider farming this out at some point and looking for other engineers?
The board may want to consider that, but this cost has remained level for 3 years, and it's going to continue to remain level in FY14. In the future, the board may want to look at it, but the cost remains steady at $4,500 for the year.
Very good. And these are appropriated, and that the town owns this. Very good. Okay, is there a motion? This is just signatures for all of us, actually.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to award Stantec again, Stantec Consulting Services, our groundwater sampling, annual monitoring for this fiscal year. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0, please. We have another contract. It must be the end of the year. It's contract season, right? The town voted GIS money this time around, and Tom, this has been something you've pushed for some time with respect to GIS, what it can actually do for us. This is our first contract. I guess I would ask the question of Margaret, were there any surprises from the contract, from the assessor's perspective, or from the cost versus the estimate?
There are no surprises whatsoever between what we were told and the contract as it's written. It is important to note, however, that this is going to be an annual, $1,800 of this fee will be an annual expense for the annual service of GIS. As I tried to explain at town meeting, not very successfully, this GIS is going to allow anyone interested to look at parcel records and other town maps online to do so. All the maps that are currently in the town office building on walls will be included on the GIS, the zoning map. And then if anyone wants to take a look, the state GIS, Massachusetts GIS, has an entire list of maps and other data groupings that they can make available to towns, and we're going to probably select some of those. Town's existing sewer system will be on it, so there are going to be a number of different uses for GIS, so it's exciting.
So really enhanced information. You advocated for this for some time, Tom.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool. Well, Mr. Chair, if I could, Margaret, when we get contracts like this to sign, can we have the accountant sign off that the available funds and everything are there? So that the accountant can just initial that?
Yes, and I will have him do that, yeah, and I'll have him, if the board wants to make that contingent on the accountant's.
No, I mean, we can't sign a
Right.
contract anyway, so,
Yes, and I will ask him to do that on Thursday.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so is there a motion to enter an agreement into a into agreement with CAI Technologies to provide GIS services for the town of Sunderland?
Motion.
Motion, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0, please. Okay. Frontier, capital improvement. Now, we had 4 towns voting on what was essentially the mechanism was a warrant article. Each of the towns passed a variety of variation, of items that were submitted. And we have correspondence from the superintendent effectively asking for a special town meeting sometime between by September to appropriate the remaining, to appropriate the full value of the original request. Now, this board was in a fair amount of discussion. We had facilities manager, superintendent, new superintendent here talking about the list of items. And our warrant article included and was approved by town meeting, the safety and security items at the building, and then less the vehicle, less some electrical work, which could be capitalized for an outbuilding. We've got a piece of table in front of us, essentially, how different each of the towns took it. Now, Conway and Whately passed as presented. Deerfield approved even less than Sunderland did by number of tasks, and Sunderland approved the safety and security items. Now, the superintendent's asking for all of it to be passed, appropriated for at a future special town meeting. The request for a special town meeting, there's a whole handful of ways to go about it. This is in front of us. I guess, first of all, I'd like to know the temperament of the board with respect to our path forward. You know, we did approve all the safety and security measures. Town did go out and appropriate all that. This is not a capital budget, so it doesn't fall, we've been counseled that it does not fall under the agreement, the district agreement. It came across as a warrant article. So, prerogative of the board. I'm sure we have a couple of questions we'd like to have answered. I think, Tom, you raised the questions about the vehicles, their specifications, and the first thing that jumps up for me would be funding sources.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, my biggest concerns is typically a lot of this information hasn't been vetted. It hadn't been reviewed. I can't tell you the specifications for the truck. I can't tell you the specifications for the, and again, don't forget, for the town of Sunderland, the only thing that we did not agree to was power to the garage, electrical power to the garage.
Yeah.
Now, that's been like that for forever, so I don't quite understand why it has to be done right now. Survey the emergency generator connection at oil pumps, kitchen walk, and refrigerator.
That's the survey only.
Just a survey only, and then they want to replace the GMC pickup and the van. So there's actually very little that we have, but I would say, at the present time, I can't make a recommendation. And again, $30,000 for a pickup truck appears to be high. I don't know what they do with the truck.
Yep.
I don't know if they plow with it, or not. So I would expect them to come at some point and talk to us about
You want to have it in person? Do you want to correspond?
She said she'd be willing to come in, so if you'd like to schedule.
So I find it, and again, hard to vote, as to having to have a town meeting, a special town meeting.
Right.
I'm not willing to do that. I would probably consider doing it at a special that's, we have to have, but to have a special town meeting for the school because of items that they didn't get, I would not support that. I wouldn't. Because you're asking people to come out for pickup, a van, a survey for the emergency generator, and power to a garage. And power to garage is like $1,500. And I don't know why that wouldn't be in the budget. They couldn't do that in their budget.
Yep.
Every year to turn it back free cash. I don't understand. So that to me is something that could happen right away. And the survey of the emergency generator, I don't know how much that cost.
Right.
So they're tough to think. And again, not that we wouldn't support it, but I just don't think it could be better.
We have had exercised a relatively high bar when it comes to calling special town meetings. Out of necessity, we will, obviously.
Right.
But it's been a relatively high bar, certainly since this board's tenure. So it would be nice if there was some confluence of things that had to be done.
Right.
So it
Something
wasn't-
else we can do with it.
And, hopefully it's not budgetary or 9-seat cuts or anything crazy like that. I have no interest in going to a special for those kinds of items anymore. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But having done it enough. That said, maybe a list of dates to the superintendent's office for a meeting to come in and just say, listen, what is it again? We know we see the list, but here's our real concerns. and then feed them those questions beforehand.
Right,
Well, I'd also like to see the quotes for the vehicles.
right, and also what other options they've looked at.
Because
Or-
I would say right now, that the quotes, you can talk to, what is it, MQD or MHD? or-
MHQ.
MHQ,
Yep.
and Margaret could call them, if you tell us what the specs are, we can get prices tomorrow.
Right.
So, I don't think it's a very difficult thing to do, and again, I find, well, 30,000 for a pickup. People buy an awful lot of pickup for $30,000. And $30,000 for a van, I mean, basically, it's a transport van, so it's got
Right.
seats, seat belts.
Right.
It's, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder, whatever, I don't know.
Seems like you want to take advantage of any kind of, group purchasing or any other purchasing power or abilities that we have as a group.
Yep.
Or group of communities,
State bid, yeah, at
Yeah.
least look at state bid to see.
right?
And again,
Maybe
on
we
state
coulda-
bid, right now, you can go to the MHQ, and I can tell you, you're buying a pickup for 17,000.
But again, you gotta know the specs.
Basic truck is 17,000.
So maybe we could fire together, get these forwarded, get them in the form of a correspondence and nail down some dates, so they can come with either feed us forward that information, so we can have a conversation about it. And a larger conversation to have isn't so much this list or a series of specific items. A larger question is about how this particular warrant article was developed and how it was presented. Right? Capital budgets are very different than a warrant article. That's the reason you ended up with this kind of mishmash of different votes.
Well, the problem I do have a problem. What is being called now is not being called a capital plan, it's being called a supplemental budget.
Right.
Yeah, and,
So
That's a
let's
good
think
point.
about that for 1 second.
Yeah.
If they saying that this is as part of the normal budget, then we're looking at, what was our increase?
A baseline increase of X. For us, it was like $38,000.
Right.
and that's precisely the issue our council had,
Right.
was that it wasn't discussed at the Frontier Regional School District meetings as a supplemental budget. They were discussed as capital improvements, and all the records show that they were capital improvements. And statute governs supplemental budgets. Statutes require the towns to pay for supplemental budgets. So it wasn't discussed as that or presented as that, so that's why our council advised the town to do what it did.
And I know we're talking about some of that we've talked about before, but I would also say, and I would kind of reiterate to the school, is that they have a mechanism for dealing with capital. They can come up with a capital plan and they can notify the towns, and then the towns have a choice if they bring it back. And they can do it, they can incur debt by right.
Absolutely.
And the town, and we've done it before, where the town doesn't even have to have a town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We have always had, we've always felt it was right to go. Some towns don't, they just allow it to pass through.
Right.
We have asked for a town meeting, most of the time it's been done in the special, but we've combined it, so that we can discuss, so that our residents have an opportunity to discuss what's going
Talking
on.
about the debt. Remember,
Correct.
ball field lights.
Correct.
Right.
So, and so that is they have multiple ways to do it, but now to change the terminology, call it supplemental budget, I mean, anyway, whatever.
No, it's a legitimate area of concern, in particular, because as a warrant article, each town can go about it. As part of the budget process, it's a very different kettle of fish.
Mhm.
It's a different
Absolutely.
process, different set of rules apply, and maybe a little less in the ways of potential scrutiny.
Well, and again, it's not that we, and again, I'm not questioning, do they need a truck, do they need a van? It's understanding what they, and again, the finance committee hasn't had an opportunity to really discuss this in depth.
Point.
And I don't think they have not made they made a recommendation which was similar to our recommendation, so.
Yep, good points. So we'll correspond with the administration over the next week or so and get some dates out there and get some of these questions hopefully forwarded to us. Okay, it's part of that time of the year now where we have the beginning of our appointment process. We have a pretty good list of appointments that go on. And by starting earlier rather than later, we can peck away at some of them. So committee designations, we can talk about between now and our next meeting. Take a look at what we're actually on already. And how many of these under BOS appointments this is the list that currently you can act on, correct?
That is, yes, I haven't updated the dates yet, not until the board takes a vote.
Okay. All these are 1 year?
These, no, they're not all 1 year. There
Ah.
are some 3 years mixed in. I
there you go.
apologize. I should have
ZBA.
sorted by term, yes.
That's all right.
You've got
Council on
ZBA
Aging.
and the Agricultural Commission, both 3-year terms.
Okay, so we have 3-year for agricultural.
And COA.
Council of Aging is 3. Historical Commission is 3, right? And then ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals is 3.
But everyone on this list, their terms expire in 2013, but,
Okay, so the appointment, the end of the current appointment is on, and they've all been contacted, these we have feedback from all these people. Okay. Tom, in the past, we've done it by done it by name.
You wanna read them all?
I'm asking the question.
I think we can do it as
slate.
As a, yeah.
as presented.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion for Board of Selectmen's Committee appointments for fiscal year 14 commencing upon July 1, 2013. Members of the Agricultural Committee, Constables, Council on Aging, Energy Committee, Fall Festival Committee, Franklin County Bikeway Committee, Franklin County Regional Planning Board, Franklin County Solid Waste Alternative, Historical Commission, Recreation Committee, Sunderland Emergency Preparedness Team, Sunderland Telecommunications Committee, Town Council, Volume 3, Steering Committee, 2 members of Boarding Zone of Appeals, and the Zoning Board of Appeals Associate Members.
Second.
We have a slate presented with a motion to appoint and a second. There's a lot of volunteers here. They do a lot of good
Yep.
stuff in the town. Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0, please.
Thanks to all those people who
If I could
agree.
add, on any of the, I mean, we are pretty lucky in the town of Sunderland that we fill, most of our boards and committees, but if there anybody in there that is interested in volunteering, contact the Selectman's office and we can see if we can match up your
interests?
interest with positions.
So, yeah, even with the full slate, you go through the process. This is one of the times we will be doing appointing throughout this, and this June month, going into July. We invariably end up with either turnover or have open positions.
Mm.
So that's a really important point, Tom.
I'll have a list of vacancies for the board at your next meeting.
Okay. Super. Every year the town has a fiscal audit, and we pay for that fiscal audit through appropriation at town meeting. We have downstairs the draft, we have downstairs the audit management letter to review. And inside of that management letter, again, public document, there are going to be, once it's reviewed by the board, signed and sent back, the auditor can release that, and we can learn our lessons. Ever coming on board as a selectman the first year from industry and looking and going, wow, a fiscal review, a management letter, that's really, really progressive in many ways. You don't have to do it this way, you can have it done other ways, but it's always a treat to look back over a decade or so and see what is no longer on that list. Things that are happening,
Right.
that the reason for these letters, for these audits. So, when we get a chance to review this, this is the draft, we'll get it signed and sent back, and then we can talk about that future meeting when it comes forward with all our signatures on it. Okay? All right, any other comments? Tonight, we are, again, planning to adjourn to move to executive session for an update on Union 38 negotiations, and then we'll return to open session to adjourn. So, any other comments from the board?
One thing, in the paper Saturday, Deerfield's oldest resident was my second grade teacher,
Really?
Yeah.
and was Tom Zanoski's second grade teacher.
Who's that?
Mrs. Newcomb.
In this building?
No, she was my third grade.
Huh?
She was third grade. We had Mrs. Kennedy for second grade.
Well, Tom's older than I am.
That's right.
I was gonna resist the urge to make some jokes at that, but
Softball
it was just too
right
easy.
there.
But, She's Deerfield's oldest resident,
How old is she?
100.
Wow.
And she had a birthday party yesterday at the Polish Club, I think.
Nice.
So
There you go.
I would just like to take an opportunity to let everybody, that had went to Sunderland Elementary, that let everyone know that they didn't read the newspaper, that Mrs. Newcomb is still around. She did turn 100. And she started here back like in early 60s. 61, 62, 63, something like that. So she was here for a few years. And it's funny, because I was talking to one of the assessors that I went to school with. It's funny what we remember.
You remember the building commissioner beating you up.
Oh, I remember that well, yeah. But we remember, there's just traits that you would think, how do you remember that 45 years later? But you do remember, there are certain things that you remember. And I just thought it was kind of interesting, because she, and actually, one of the assessors, that was her favorite his favorite elementary school teachers.
That is interesting. So Mrs. Newcomb.
Huh?
Mrs. Newcomb?
Newcomb.
Nice. Happy birthday, Mrs. Newcomb. Okay, we have no meeting next week. We're on
No
our
meeting
summer
next week.
schedule as of now.
Yes.
And with that said,
The board has an executive session this Wednesday.
Right.
With that said, I'm sorry.
okay,
Interrupted.
no trouble at all. Okay, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter an executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, dot 3, to discuss the strategy with respect to the Union 38 teacher and teaching assistant contract negotiations, of which David is the rep for our group, and this is only an update. We'll be returning to open session only to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, and this will be a roll call.
Okay, Mr. Pierce?
Aye.
Mr. Bergeron?
Aye.
Mr. Feinkevitz?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Tom Z. Thank you, Kathleen. And we are going to return to open session.